Okay, what may be done on Chol Moed and Shemitah, which are similar parameters. Are you, does that tree bother you? It's okay. Put it maybe on top of the shelves. So we are Moed Katan Daf Gimel Amrav.
Page 5.
And we are in on the 5th line, right at the beginning of the line. Ira de Tzipori, the aqueduct or water canal in Tzipori, Yisbechas Memoada. It got ruined on Yontif. In fact, it's interesting. This is actually, you can go today. I actually have pictures from our trip to Israel last summer of the aqueduct. It's a major engineering feat. It brought the water from kilometers away to Tzipori, and it's still there. A great deal of it's still there. Part of it's above ground, part of it's below ground. It's really a monumental thing, which is still there, and it's amazing to see. Actually, it's mentioned in the Gemara. So, Ayrat Tzipori is Bachas, it broke, Ben Mo'adah, and Chol Moed. Chavrayat Savim Meimer, the Chavrayat, I mean, the Chom wanted to say, Shari, that it's permissible to fix it. From what it says in our Mishnah, you can fix where the water is ruined. Now the thing is, Rabbi Yirmiyah Asr, it's not brought down here. Korban throws it in as a girsa. It's evident from the next line. Rabbi Yirmiyah forbade them to do it nevertheless. All right, Pinchas says, "Lost Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah forbade them. It's el mishum halachas patish. Interesting halacha. Halacha means to, bring it back and forth, to blow with the hammer. And actually, what he's saying is that, although theoretically, from the strict letter of the law perspective, it's not also to engage in this kind of fix up activity on Shabbos, on Chol Moed, but nevertheless, it sounds bad. It's like a Marasayan type thing. In other words, if there are a lot of hammer blows ringing in the streets, it defiles, that detracts from the Kedusha of Yom Tov. So actually it's because of a public policy issue that he forbade it, not so much because of the actual halachic issue. Rav Chuna Savar Meimar Shari. Rav Chuna wanted to say, Bar Makatio, the cemetery in Bar Makatio is Petachas B'Moed, something went bad. Cemetery. Beis Island. Cemetery.
Oh, Beis Island.
Yeah. They sound about, that's what all unfortunate think it is. Maybe it's something else, but that's what everybody's interpreted. They sound about Makati is Petachas B'Moed. He got ruined Chol Moed. Rav Chuna Savar Meimar Shari. Rav Chuna wanted to say it's mutter to fix it. It says in Mishnah, Bosi Chol Tzarech Rabbi, we can do all the needs of the masses on Chol Moed. Amrli Rav Mona said, Lo Tani Shmuel, didn't Shmuel teach us, Elios Shopin Esidkein. It only means to smooth out the cracks, meaning you cannot do any long-term repairs on Chol Moed. You can do short-term repairs, what's necessary for the immediate, upkeep, but not beyond that. Now, yesterday, obviously, we learned an opinion which held that you can even put off the repairs to Chol Moed if you know that Chol Moed you'll be able to get cheap labor or something like that and be able to accomplish more than you can on a weekday. But generally speaking, it seems that either this argues or this modifies. Either argues and says dafka, where you can actually get the dafka, the work which you have to do for Chol Moed itself, that's permitted. Or else you have to say that it's dafka if it's work which is unavoidable that it be done on Chol Moed, that it can't be done any other time. So in any event, the work on the cemetery was only the minimum which was necessary in order to be done at that time, as opposed to whatever could be put off till later on. Says it said in the Mishnah, it's actually a quote from the Mishnah, it says you can dig out your your drainage canals. So what does it mean? Garpilon, you sweep out the gunk which gets stopped up and stops them up. Nina and Tamon, like we learned over there, Hachotit Betzina, somebody who makes an indentation.
We're all going to be davening now.
We're all going to be davening now?
Yeah, we spoke to Dion, we discussed the issue, and we don't think that it's going to be any better than last night at 10:15.
Well, there wasn't many.
There were 6 people davening, basically, but it was
All right, we'll dive in now. So says more further. So chotin mosan is garfilon. You remove gunk from them. Kaidetin, like it learned. We said over there. Hachotin betino kabel tronos. Somebody who digs into a tzino or into a pipe to make like a little catch. To catch little pebbles that you're going through, so that means to dig into, and here to dig into means to clean out. V'osi kol tzorchei rabbi, who all the needs of the masses on Chol Hamoed. Eloi tzorchei rabbi, what are tzorchei rabbi? Done in dinim mominus, you can judge court cases in monetary matters, dinim fashos, capital crimes, dinim makos, corporal punishment, u'poetzishmin, redeem captives. So the Chronim mask, you redeem captives even on Shabbos, it's considered to be pikuach nefesh. So they say it's like counting, making the accounting books, not some peripheral task. So even that you're allowed to do a Chol Hamoed. V'arachim, what can be involved in arachim and charame ekdesh, various types of ekdesh. Umashkin is a soita, one can give a soita to drink, it's considered to be tzorchei rabbi. The surfing a sapora, and one can burn a paraduma, v'artil egg la rufa, and wring the neck of an animal if you found a casualty, you do not know who killed that person. V'roitzim ne'evid ivri, one is allowed to pierce the ear of an evid ivri. With Taras HaMitzorah, you can go pronounce the Taras HaMitzorah, that is going to come back tonight again later on. Now, this is not the last thing, really has nothing to do with tzorchei rabbi, but it's just put down because it's relevant to Chol Hamoed. One is allowed to take a shum al gabi imum from on top of a lath, but not put it back, because putting it back is a special craft to fix. So, says Gemara, we're wondering where you went.
What?
We're wondering where
laser tag.
Yeah,
I just went in to see what it was.
okay. Did they let you in?
Yeah, sure. Didn't want to put a vest on me. I said, no, I'm fine. I can't stand up in there.
Mitzayin alek for us, and you can mark graves on Chol Hamoed. Look, Martina Me'adar, and we already learned in Masechta Shkolim that they would mark the graves in Adar, right? That's when they will go out and mark. Tipoter shiur ad shetav shel kshamim. So it's about a case where there came down a torrent of rain, the shot foot and wiped away the markings. The Yotzak Kilayim, you go out and mark.
So according to this, you really could not be the science of course, except but for the fact that
The God wiped it. You can't leave it. That's what we said before, as we said with Tzorch Moed. So you can't leave it for Chol Hamoed. It's just if you see it on Chol Hamoed, things have deteriorated, you can go out and be misaking it.
I was wondering whether effect you got like comments on that Seifa, so to say.
No, probably not. There's only because of where there's potential tumor and tar ramification, whereas a Kamas Mitzvah is generally in a case where in the middle of the cemetery it's not that kind of problem. So it says the Gemara, when go out also and check the kilayim. Look for Yotzim Yada. Didn't they already go out in Adar? Tipoter Rizal explained. Shaisa B'Shana Fela. It was when things grew late. Literally, they were dark. It's when the growth was not recognizable to Chol Hamoed. Now let's see. I know you're supposed to mark grapes. Rabbi Yaakov Bas Yaakov b'Shem Rabbi Chuni the Bras Chavron. Rabbi Yisrael Milo Rabbi Yaakov Baracha b'Shem Rabbi Chuni the Bras Chavron. Rabbi Chizkiah Rabbi Uziel Breder of Chunya Breder of the Bras Chavron. Somebody said it the following: V'tamei yikra. A person in the Torah has to go around telling everybody he's tamei. Kadei shetei tuma kora lo b'fiyah. So the same thing here. Tuma calls out with its mouth, Vomer's to approach and tells everybody else to separate from it. And here too, the Tuma calls out, meaning the gravestone calls out and says, this is a Tomei place. Rabbi Shem Rosh Shmuel Bar Nachman said another pshat. It says after the war of Gog and Magog, Armageddon, it's the people who pass through the land, if they see a bone from a human being, they will make them put up by their marker. We see they make markers on bones. Adam, from the word Adam, which is a superfluous word, it teaches us you put up a sign, even if it's not a full skeleton, but even just a a spine and a skull. Ubana, then it says the word ubana. And from this, you put the marking on a fixed stone, not one which might wobble around. If you're going to say you put it on a stone which is severed from the ground, it'll go roll away. People think the tomb is elsewhere, whereas really it's here. Etzlo, it says in Postal the word etzlo, it means you build a little bit over in the surrounding areas so that the stone ends in the Torah place. So meaning people don't come right up to the side of the grave because the headstone or the tombstone is a little bit larger than the size of the grave. Tziyun, it says a marker, we see it has to be a marker. Matzah even achas mitzuyan is you find one marking stone. It can, even though it literally means you don't leave it like that, but it means it's very rare because obviously it's a very small thing to have one stone, right? So mile of tummy, nevertheless, I say that if you step over it and make an oil by stepping over it, you become tummy. Why? Because Ani Omer, I say, even though it's rare to find such an extremely small, isolated headstone, I say Ani Omer, I say that mace kamtut a cut up mace is underneath the stone and he's buried deeply, not horizontally but vertically, and therefore I have to be careful not to step over the stone in order to be matam myself, especially when I'm going. If there are two stones in proximity, a mile tar, then I say that neither stone is over the grave, but rather the grave is between the two stones. So if you create an oil by walking over either one of the stones, you're tar. But then, if you walk between them, however, tamei, that's part where the grave is, and then you become tamei. If, however, there was a plowed field, a plowed area between the two stones, and that indicates that there's no mace buried there. If he is, long ago it would have been plowed up. So then, harei and kiyachidos, then each stone is to be independent. They name Torah, and between the two of them is Torah. Same surrounding them is tamei. Time learned, aim at time alabosar shemani sakel alabosar. The halacha is that if you have some flesh you have to bury, somebody lost some flesh, but there is no bone, you don't make a marker over it, because after a while the flesh rots away into nothingness. Rabbi Yisrael bar Shunam boy, he asked, what about all the taros, or all the people of Torah, or the truma which is taken over that unmarked grave before the meat rotted into oblivion? So he said, interesting perspective. He said, it's better that they'll be inconvenienced by tuma temporarily by than being ruined permanently by assuming that there's a mace where there isn't, and thus cutting down on prime land and prime real estate in Eretz Yisrael. So better to not mark it, because eventually the mace will rot, and whatever becomes tummy in the meantime, they're like an ones, but eventually the tomb is going to fall off when it becomes completely rotted away. Okay? Next Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Moshe Nesamayim Ilam when it's allowed to draw water from tree to tree, on Chol Moed. In other words, if you're watering one tree, you're allowed to make an irrigation canal to another tree. Avolo Yashket's Chol Sadakula, but not for the entire field. Zroim Shlo Shosif Nemoed, if you have seeds which were not watered before you have to begin. So Lo Yashket Moed. So obviously you don't care about whether they're giving them water or not, so you're not allowed to just go and water them because it's convenient. The Chachayim Matirim, turning the page, Chachayim say it's permissible, regardless of whether there was water before you had to or not. Raimon says the following statement without attribution. Rabbi Yavin said B'Shem Shmuel. Rabbi Yavin said name is Shmuel. B'stam chalukim, they're arguing about a generic field in our Mishnah. And what is this generic field? Manakay, what it's about? If the plants are broadly spaced apart from each other, everybody gets now to put an irrigation canal between the plants. Too much tircha, too much nuisance and bother. They're very close together. Everybody gets, you're allowed to put irrigation canals between the plants. Okay, what's the issue here? When there are a middle distance from each other, a standard distance, 10 planted in a measure which produces a saw, and they knew precisely what their measure was. As Yaakov said, in that case, it's as if they're far apart. You may not bring water through canals from one to the other. Rabbanan says it's not considered to be far apart. It's like they're close together, and therefore you can bring water through the canals. Which go from where you can create canals and bring water through the canals from one to the other on Chol Moed. Mao Lamshich. What is the story with? I thought it's about Lamshich Tilma. 1 second. Oh no, so I was wrong. It says here explicitly. Harabanan. I skipped a line, didn't I? Harabanan. The rabbis said, Amri. They said, Meruvachin Aser. When the trees are spread apart, you're not allowed to water them, right? The lahashkos, most lahashkos, not allowed to water them. Ma'olam shich, but can you draw water from one to the other? In other words, when they're very far spread apart, you're not allowed to water each one individually. But what about bringing water through a canal from one to the other? So Neila Fadot, the Rabbanon mean the Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov. Let's learn how the sheet of Rabbanon from the sheet of Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov. Kamad Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov Omar b'muruvachim osel ashkos. When they're widely spread apart, you're not allowed to give each one independently water. However, mutar l'amshich, allowed to draw water from one to each other through a canal. Ken Rabbanon, so too Rabbanon will say Amrei, b'muruvachim, what they consider to be spread out, spread apart. Also, Ashless was now to give to each one independently. Mutam Sheikh, one is allowed to draw little canals from one to the other. So actually, more severe about giving water outright than about drawing canals. Giving water outright is considered to be far more of a contravention of the spirit of Yontif as opposed to drawing canals from one to the other. So in fact, give one of them water, you can draw canals to the other according to Rabbanan, even though you can't give them water independently. Okay, because that's too much of a nuisance or hassle on you on Chol Moed. Says the Gemara, V'lokein Savri Meimar. Aren't we not coming out with a svara to say, with the logic to say, that Meruvachim, when the land is, when the trees are broadly spread apart, it's also to water all of them. Well, if that's the case, vein offer lavan. It's not really an issue over here, but it's an issue in the Masechta Shemitah, Masechta Shvius. It says that offer lavan, white sand, you're allowed to moisten on Yontif. Why? Ain't offer lavan lo meruvachim, who is not offer lavan very broad swaths of territory. So why is that permissible? So it says, I'll tell you why. One is talking about Shemitah, one is talking about Chol Moed. Mavin is Mavin was, it between Shemitah and Chol Moed. So Shvius Aideshi Muteres, when Malacha, Shemitah, since it's mutter to do work, there's no Isser Malacha, just a specific kind of field work. So therefore, he tiru ben davar shulchir ben davar sheinu shulchir. They allow you to do things even if though they're a hassle to you, they're difficult. Moed, however, Chol Moed, Aideshu also malachat, since it's part of the Isser Malach of Yontif, so lo yitir lo davar shraved, only allowed something which will get lost if left until after Yontif, and u'ba'av davar sheinu shulchir has to be sung where there's no exertion, no overwork necessary in servicing the purpose on Chol Moed. At least the boy made my sons wanted to say Shmini Minado. Let's understand between Shemitah and Chol Moed like this. Shvius Aideshus Manamru, since Shemitah takes a long year, they allowed you to do certain types of work during the year. Moed Aideshus Manakotav Chol Moed, which is brief, wait till after Yontif. Now it says more again, the same question we had on Rav. It might not, maybe it shouldn't be here, but here it is. Also, Shivas Yomei Achron, if that's the case, the difference is in time. So last 7 days of the year, right before Rosh Hashanah, Lo mistabra mi'adin k'shivas me'aregel, we should make them like the 7 days of Yontif, right? V'yu asurin, and they should be forbidden. I forget what they're supposed to be forbidden in. What is supposed to be forbidden? Oh, to draw water or water independently, depending on what commodity we're talking about. So if you Chol Moed, you disallow things because you're not missing that much time. So also last 7 days of Shemitah, since you don't have that much time left to miss, no more than Shemitah itself. So then you are allowed to. Then you'll be prohibited to do the work, whatever work you want to do on the last day's can't mix up, but if you refer to what you want to do on the last days of the year, because it's similar to Chol Moed, just like there, 7 day in the ban, in effect, it was not intended to be Geferlich, and Torah gave it to you anyway. So Kol Shkein, if the Torah is just giving you a year's a 7. I'm not saying it right. Tongue tie. Let me just try and say it outside again one more time. What we're trying to say is that if the 7 days of Yontif, there are certain things which are severely restricted because you can wait till after the 7 days are over. So to the last 7 days of Shemitah, let's say the same thing. Let's restrict you severely because in 7 days all the regulations don't apply, and then it'll become mutter anyway, right? So therefore we have a parallel. Say on Yontif we forbid certain types of watering, which we permit during Shemitah, but the last 7 days of Shemitah we would not permit that types of watering. Okay, those type of watering your crop. Okay? It says we indeed found a brayso which says Marbitzim b'offer love mishpis, one is allowed to do the work, the toil with white dirt on Shemitah v'lo moed v'nal chol moed, either because Shemitah they allowed malacha anyway, so therefore this is permitted, or because on chol moed they need it more urgently. It's not clear. All right. The Chachamim Atzir b'zel v'zeh. Chachamim permit both in this case and this case. Ma'u b'zel v'zeh. What's this case and this case? Ben sheshasu kodem regel, ben sheshasu kodem regel, ben shelo shasu kodem regel. So the ask the question. Does a field? Does it mean all fields get their allotment of irrigation canals to make, whether they were watered for Yontif or not? Says Gemara, no, can't be. Kan Elon kan Zroim. The difference is between Elon and Zroim. Zroim actually do not need water so much, so therefore these things cannot be permitted by seeds. But by wine, all these things are permitted again because by wine or any other tree. All these things are permitted because they're essential for the nature of the tree. So that's what we're trying to say. Matir B'Zel B'Zeh is not talking about that they're matir both before and after, whether you gave the field to drink before Yontif or not. In fact, they still retain that chiluk. If you gave the field to drink before Yontif, you continue to do this on Chol Moed. If you didn't, then tough luck. But rather, what they're trying to say is that depends what kind of a tree or vegetation we're talking about is that which we permitted it to. What? To water is only by a tree, not by Zoram, which do not need it. Seeds do not need that much water. Okay, Allah Chadal. Tzadin es ha'ishos, one's allowed to hunt down ishos. Ishos are weasels. They're weasels. Moles. On Yontif. Moles. M-O-L-E-S. Besach Barim and mice. Basada in the fields. Bestay in a field of trees. Bestay Lovin and in a grain field. Kedarko. Allowed to do this in normal fashion. B'moed, an chol moed, u'b'shmias and shmias as well. Rabbi Rameir Besada Ilan Kedarko. Besada Lo and Shalo Kedarko. Says no. In Sada Ilan you can do it the normal way in a tree field. But in a grain field, you have to do it with a shinui because that's too much similar to the normal work. One is allowed to close up a gap in one's wall if it occurs during Chol Moed, but not more than that, not more than ad hoc repairs. For the Shmias and the Shemitah, Bona Kilchas, you can build the actual way, full lock, stock, and barrel. Okay? So David it says the word. Ishus, what is the Ishus we're counting down to Chulda? It's a mole. Hava b'shein rayel darv, even though there's no clear-cut evidence that it's echad darv, there's an allusion to that. It says nafal eishes, the eishes fell bal chazor shemesh in a place where the sun can't see it. So that sounds like a mole lives where the sun can't see it. Nicha b'stei ilon, and I understand in a state ilon, a vineyard such like that you're allowed to catch the you're allowed to hunt down these animals, right? So that's good. But stay loving, but why in a grain yard, whatever they're called, a plot which grows grain? Why? What's the problem over there? So I guess that the animals, these kinds of animals, the moles and the mice, cause much more damage by trees than by grain. So we're asking why you're allowed to hunt them down in the granary on a Chol HaMoed. So it says the Gemara will tell you why. I'll tell you again. Nicha b'stei lavan, b'sada lavan she'usmucha l'sada ilan. Yeah, because sometimes you have a grain field which is adjacent to a regular field, and therefore the pests, around have to be controlled because of your proximity with the guy who has the wheat fields. Okay? Tani machrivin charore gemoli was allowed to destroy, to ruin antles on the moed al-chol. What? Antils. What did I say? Yeah. Now, how do you do? I'm not sure what the tzorach of Yantav is. I guess it's bad for your crops or something like that. So how do you do it? You take some of the mice from one ant from one anthill, and they and put them in the other anthill. And needless to say, they get into a fight, turf war, and they suffocate each other to death. These ants. It's only if there is a canal between the two anthills. The canal between the two anthills, so they're strangers. They're strangers, so then they'll start killing one another. Nowadays, if they're friends, they start killing one another. It says, it was allowed to fix a hole in the wall of the moed, but not in the real way, which is a pebble on a stone on a pebble. I guess the big stones and little stones are kind of made it interlock. You can't do that in Yom Tov. Oh, you can. No, they used to do it the other way. Sorry, they used to do it stone on stone and pebble on pebble. And to do it stone on pebble and pebble on stone is considered to be derogatory or diminishing of the dead person. But nevertheless, that's what he's saying here. What did I say, dead person? Sorry, I take that back. Wrong sugya. Here we're talking about rebuilding a fence in a backyard. So we're talking about just a plain stone fence. So for some reason, I know exactly why they used to put a stone on a stone, a pebble on a pebble, and that was better. If you put a stone on a pebble and a pebble on a stone, that's no good. Okay, it doesn't hold properly. But that's all we allow you to do on Chol HaMoed. We don't allow you to do more than that. Okay, only the bare minimum. So it says, Emno gabi em, nutzro gabi tzror. It was right the first time. Sorry, you're supposed to put a pebble on a stone, a pebble. Big stones and little stones, little stones, big stones. But here it's in Chol HaMoed, Emno gabi em, nutzro gabi tzror. You put big stones on big stones and little stones on little stones. Right? With Shvius, but on Shemitah, you can build the normal way. Emno gabi tzror, big stones and little stones, tzror gabi em, and little stones and big stones. Now, the only time you're allowed to close up the hole in your fence is if it's a break, which is not filled in with dirt. I will appear to she saga as a offer, but won't just fill with dirt, which serves like a back wall. Also, you're not allowed to fix it even during Shemitah. When Tani came, we learned this in the Bride. So, Kol Pirta she saga as a offer. Anytime you have an opening, but it still is closed by dirt and earthenware, earthwork berm, then also the Goja B'Shvi is not allowed to build the fence of Church Shemitah. B'Shena Sasaga Safar, because it's protected anyway. B'Shena Sasaga Safar, but if it's not something which is protected by an earthwork berm behind the actual fence, so then Mutar the Goja B'Shvi, you're allowed to fix the Church Shemitah. V'Shena Machshel Sisarabim. But this is also only true if it doesn't cause stumbling back for the masses. For some reason the stones caused a stumbling block with the massive stones which fell out of your gate, which is understandable. Even though it's going to she saga offer, in other words, that even though it still has an earthenwork berm behind it, right? She's allowed to put up the regular brick wall in front of that. Because like we learned, it says, if your wall is inclined to fall, so you can break it down on Boneo and build it back up even on Yotav itself, on Chol Moed itself. Why don't you just take it down and not rebuild it? So it says, Yochanan said, let you put it back up, because otherwise you won't take it down. We weren't concerned for public safety. You're going to tell him you can't rebuild it. So he's going to keep his slum in place. Right? He's not going to break it down. And even somebody is going to come to dangerous results. Okay. Meir says, one can see, a Kohen can look at Saras, to be lean, in other words, to get the guy out of a bind that he's in, but not to be machmir. Chachamim said, don't look neither to be makel nor to be machmir. Meir said further, a person can elect the bones of his father and mother on a Chol Moed, even though you would expect that to be a negative thing, right? Because the joy is to be able to gather up their bones and bring them to a proper kever. Interesting perspective, right? Rabbi Yossi Mer Abel Lorbi says it's not permitted because it's an able for him. And for the 30 days before Yontif, you cannot do the hesped and do not arouse crying for the mace, because the people are imminently making their preparations for Yontif. Okay, so therefore, the last 2 days of Yontif, you don't make eulogies, nor do you arouse cries on a dead person. Okay? Says more further. Talmud learned over there, Baheres Kigris. If you have a Baheres, means a tzaras mark on your skin, the size of whatever the grease is, small vegetable that makes you tummy, that size. Baheres Kigris, upasas begris. Then this mark expanded doubled in area. Pasas means expanded. V'nola pision, and then where it expanded, it got michya. It within the affected area. It got an area which is not affected, which is a sign of tumah. Oser lemon got white hair, which is another sign of tumah. Oive. So what's he going to do now? He got developed tzaras. He developed its tzaras spread. So says the Gemara. I skipped that. Vochelu means the original part went away. So he had an original mark of tzaras and another one sprouted next to it with all the hallmarks of tzaras, and then his hallmark.
What did it mean, take your words tonight?
Yeah, we all davened because they tried to reach you. Do you know they tried to call you?
Who?
Yaakov Weil.
No.
Because he was afraid there wasn't going to be a minyan.
No, it was a minute. There were 2 calls down here also. I was thinking we only need you for a minute.
Okay.
Right.
So if you need us, you sure you don't need us?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Sorry. Okay. So, again, let's start the Gemara again. Tamatina. Baheres kikris. If you have a Baheres, a mark of tzaras the size of a gris. Upasas kikris, and expanded the size of a gris. So it's twice as large. And there, the expanded area has a mark. Has a clear area. You know, the way tzaras works, if you have like a bagel effect, you have white around a hole, which is normal skin color, that's a surefire sign of tumah. Okay? So it got that bagel effect. Sarah Levana got white hair in the expansion, which is also a surefire sign of tumah. Vochala om. And the original mark went away. So actually, you went from an old mark to a new mark, and the new mark is much worse. The old mark might be tar, but because it went away, old mark is tar because it went away. But the new mark is for sure tamei. Okay? So now the thing is like this. So Raz is like we learned in Bible, like Kiddush HaChodesh. You can't have Tzaras unless the Kohen declares it, and a Kohen does not have to declare it. He can willfully ignore the Tzaras. Yes, that's what we do nowadays. If a person develops signs of Tzaras, you don't take him to a Kohen nowadays. We willfully ignore it, right? I don't know if we actually have it, but even if we have it, we don't do anything about it. Okay. So now, Rabbi Akiva says, guy's Tamei. He started being Tamei. True, he switched gears, but now he's Tamei. He's even worse off because he has a far stronger Tumah. Chachamim say, no, we look at him anyway to check him out. Now, the bottom line is, it says, well, I don't understand what's going on. What's the difference? Rabbi Akiva says, he's Tamei, and we have to retain his tumah definitively to make him Tamei. For Rabbanan Amrei Tirag, so that's Rabbi Akiva. Rabbanan says, okay, look at him again, but they're also machlitin. They're also going to have to concede the guy's Tamei. So what's the practical difference between the position? So it says, what's the difference? Rabbi Yochanan said a very interesting thing, and they're going to bring two other possibilities as well. Rabbi Yochanan first says, and Erev Yontif. Normally, the rest of the year, both Rabban and Rabbi Akiva come to the net result that the guy is Tamei. But on Erev Yontif, Rabbi Akiva holds he's Tamei because it's to say it's a continuation of the first thing. But Rabban hold, no, the first thing has gone away. This is the second thing. When they come to see it, what do? They look mamish at the spot and they see the first one went away. Hi, right next to it, there's a new one. They don't look at the new one. They just look at the old one, right? And it's gone. They let him stay tar for all of Yom Tov. Why is that? So in order that he should be able to be Mekayim, Yerushalmi Chagigah, Olas Re'iyah. So therefore, for Erev Yom Tov, they check him out to see if he can start bringing Karbanos, because you have to bring the first day, the Karbanos, the rest of the Yom Tov is the Tashlumin. So even though he has Tzaras, and he had Tzaras, it's a different Tzaras, we let him go. That's what the Gemara says, it's the same one, it expanded. True, the original one is not there, but it's expansion. Can't do anything. Not to be makel, not to be machmir. It's tough. No, it's a different one. But pochum in Arishon, the first one is off the hook. Okay, so we let him off the hook for the first one, and we say the second one we'll worry about after Yom Tov, so he can actually go into Beis Hamikdash. Now, the next page of the Gemara is all messed up. Isn't that exciting? It's a little tiny page. It is so deceptive. But in A, what happened here basically Gilin Ephraim. Now, the truth is, I did not try it without the Gilin Ephraim. The Gilin Ephraim shifts blocks of text throughout this page in order to make it work. And if he had a word processor, he probably would have used it. But he didn't, and we don't. So I would just tell. You'll have to trust me when I tell you where to look, and that I'll get all the words on the page in at some point or another. Now, right at the top of the page, throw out the first two lines. We'll come back to them later on. We'll insert them somewhere else, okay? Instead, put in the line which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down on the page, and you have a dot, and then the word Tzninon. Does everybody see that? Okay? See that? We learned over here. Rameir says, you look at the Nagoyim to begin with, to be makel and not to be machmir. What does it mean to be makel, not to be machmir? So that's what we said before. We said Rabbanan, just like we said, I think it was Rabbanan in our Mishnah, say that, you look at the first one to say it's not there, and then you ignore the second one and you say it's not there either. It's true, it's there, but we just don't look at it. So Rameir said the same thing, right? Same idea. Now let's go back now to the second line of the page. Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Acha, see that? The second line of the page? Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Acha said, Asya tichidad hacha. The opinion of the solitary individual in our circle, which is Rabbi Akiva, who says you can't do that. It's still there. It's the same one, expanded. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. It's Kistom and Tamon. It's like Rabbanan over there arguing at Meir. That's what Rabbanan say. You can't do that. You have to take both account. U'dichidod the Tamon, the single opinion over there, meaning Rabbi Meir's opinion, right? Who says that you can look at the first one and say it's not there, you don't have to look at the second one. That's the Gestam D'Alcha, that is the Rabbanon, the generic view in our Brisa. Now the more explains. The single opinion over here is the generic opinion over there. Rabbi Kiva, Oimer, he cut Metzar. Kiva says the same for one who was before. You cannot do anything neither to make nor to be macher. And the generic position over there, and the position right there, which is the solitary position over there, is the generic position over here. Rabbanan say this is a different nega, and you exempt him from the first one, and you exempt from the second one of as well. Now here insert the first two lines of the page. Hey dahi shelo lachmir. What does it mean that you're not machmir? Shenat nizkak lo lashniya. Of course you look at the first one. Say the first one's not there anymore. We don't look at the second one, which is right next to it. Lo lakel lo machmir, which is ignored until after Yom. Okay? Now that's all Rabbi Yochanan, who says that it's before Yom Tov. We check it out. Now comes the second shita. And the second shita, we go now down two lines from where we were before, and we go to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Bun. But before we do that, before we get there, actually we throw in this the last what do we throw in? 1 second. 5 lines to the bottom. Rabbi Zero Omer. Does everybody see that Rabbi Zero Omer? Rabbi Zero Omer, Yimei Arego Beineo. Rabbi Zero argues Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said the time when we do this whole thing is Erev Yom Tov, for the purpose of Shamei Simcha, right? That means that by the time you get to Chol Moed, you're going to look, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're going to look at the nega regardless, even according to Rabbanan. Why is that? Because by this time, it's too late for him to bring the korbanos. Since we hold that all 6 days of Yom Tov are Tashlumin, make up the first day. If the first day wasn't suitable, he can't bring the rest of Yom Tov, right? So therefore, this kula, which we have to put blinders on, only applies to the first day of Yom Tov. After that, there's no reason. Rabbi Zero argues, he says there's a reason all of Yom Tov. Because there's another mitzvah in Yom Tov besides bringing korbanos, which is to go up to the Hazorah, to go up to the Beis HaMikdash, and the mitzvah can't go up to the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, we even during Chol HaMoed, we'll still play the same trick according to Rabbanan, and we'll look only at the old one and say it's not there, and not look at the new one and say it's here already. Okay? So that's the difference. Rabbi Akiva Omer Hi Kad Mesa. Rabbi Akiva says this is the first one, and therefore it should be Ve'eno Nichnas LaZorah. Can't go into Hazorah, can't go into the Beis HaMikdash, because he's still the same nega. Rabbanan Amrei Chayrehu, it's a different one. Vu Nichnas Hazorah, again changing the gears here, he goes to Hazorah. So that's fascinating. The guy's got a physical blotch, which everybody knows is Saras. I know it's Saras. He knows it's Saras. He knows he had Saras, but he knows he was Tomei till now. But nonetheless, we let him off the hook because we say that we're looking only at the old one. We're not yet looking at the new one. It's a fascinating halach. Chassan. We also don't look at his Saras. A chassan, somebody who's in Sheva brachas. Don't look at Saras till after Sheva brachas. You let him have all Sheva Shivas and Mishnah. And the Stei Chema brings down a shita that a Sefer Torah on the day that it is you have a Chanukah Sefer Torah, whatever they call it, Achnas Sefer Torah. You also don't look at it to see if it's kosher or possible. For this reason, yeah, because it's like a chassan. We don't look at his saras, so you don't look at the Sefer Torah to see if it's possible. Okay, which is pretty good. Stechman, I think, ultimately discredits the skula, but it's a pretty interesting one because even new Sefer Torah have usually a lot of mistakes. So therefore, it's a good, nice thing to have. All right. In any event, now now going continuing along our merry way along this page. Now we're up to the Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun, which is 1, 2. It's right in the middle of the page, really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines up. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun yet said a third shita. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun Moshe Rabbi Acha said, "Bein dichida dahacha, bein rabbanan dahacha." Both the individual here, also and the rabbanan over here, both rabbanan tamon. Now here the thing is, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun being Yerushalmi Amori, he switches hacha and tamon, right? Hacha means there and tamon means here. So he says both Rab Meir and rabbanan over there will ben Yechidah Dacha ben Rabbanan Dacha, both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Akiva, Moidu Rabbanan Tamon, they concede to the rabbis over here, Lakav Lo Lachmir. They were Meichel, not Machmir. What's the difference between the two cases? Whereas we have Machlokas Rabbi Meir and Rabbanan, seems to be same Machlokas Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan. So what's the difference between the two? So he gives the difference. And before he gives the difference, I should tell you the Gilin Ephraim, he really says something which is not in the Sefer, but it is important to know that he says there's yet a third reason to give this guy a benefit. What's the reason of the doubts and not look at his new nega? What's that? Simcha. Simcha Yontif. So the first reason Rabbi Yochanan gave is to don't look at his new nega in order to allow him to bring korbanos. The second reason Rabbi Zir gave is to allow him to go to the base of Mikdash. The third reason Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun implies is to give him simcha. A person that has saras, he's depressed, right? He's dejected, he's demoralized. So we don't want that to happen, okay? So everybody concedes in this case will be mekel. Why? Because in the case where in the case where only the old blotch went away, right? So then, but there still are other signs left. So then we have a machlokas. But here, and the Gilin Ephraim takes out the word kayemes. So that's an interesting thing. Let's say you had a blotch, and in the blotch was white hair. When the blotch was that bagel hole in the middle, right? So then that blotch went away, but you were left with the white hair, or the bagel hole effect, even though it's not as visible as it was before. So in that case, where he says we have a machlokas, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Meir and Rabbanan, what to do? Should we look at the nega or not look at the nega? In other words, according to Rabbanan, we look at the nega and say the old one's gone, and we say the new one's okay. Rabbi Akiva says no, right? Rabbi Akiva says we can't do that because obviously we're making a mockery out of it, right? Because there's something still there. It's the continuation. V'araya, the proof of that is, I'm sorry, and we got the names because going over there. Rabbanan say, Rabbi Meir says it's gone. So therefore you don't look at the old one, and new one you don't look at, so you make them tar. Rabbanan say no, that's a mockery, because there's still something left of the old one. So this must be a spreading, an expansion of the old one in a new direction. Therefore, we have to continue with status as tumah. However, says Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun, that's only where there's a vestige of the old one, albeit not a complete vestige. For where there's no vestige of the old one, there perhaps even Rabbanan would agree that you do not have to look at the new one at all, because there's no commemoration of the old one. So even though you know the new one is something on its own, since the old one is completely, totally gone, so therefore you're off the hook, because I say that one's gone, and this one you don't have to look at. Again, he's contending that even Rabbanan who say it's the same old one, only say it's the same old one where there's some vestige of the old one. But now where all vestiges have been erased. Of course, Rabbi Akiva, in our case, argues and says, even if there's no vestige whatsoever, you still can't assume that there's a separate one. It's a continuation, just moved a little bit. But possible, both Rabbanan and Meir, in the case over there, would agree over here that we say that we let him off the hook. Says more, Amar Rebbe said, it was actually a brisa. Amar Rebbe, Nirin Diva Rabbi Yossi. It seems Rabbi Yossi is correct, the Muzgar. By a Tzorah who's not yet definitive of Mitzorah. You know, a Mitzorah is closeted up for 2 or 3 weeks if his marks are ambiguous, right? It's a week or two, I'm sorry. It's a week or two. It doesn't spread in the first week, then he gets the second week. Week or two, right? If Tzorah's a batim gets up to 3 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. So anyway, so you can't, so Rabbi Yossi, it seems is correct by a Muzgar, somebody who's closed up in quarantine, in isolation, to check him out. But even Rabbi Meir, sees Rabbi Meir is correct by Muchlad, by somebody who's already considered to be a Muchlad, has been a definite Mitzorah. Now what that means is like this, according to Gilad Ephraim. He says this is a raya for Rabbi Yossi Barbun that we're looking actually at his personal simcha. And there are 2 ways of defining personal simcha in Yontif. One way to define personal simcha is a simcha of a person who's an Oved Hashem. What's his simcha? To go into the Beis Hamikdash, to bring korbanos, to go to the Rebbe, whatever it is, right? There's no way to define simcha that he wants to be around his wife and kids at home. So Rabbi is going with that definition of simcha. He's saying if the guy's already a Muzgar, right? So then it seems that in that case we should paskin like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is the one who says it's the same old one, because the Muzgar has not yet been quarantined. So since he has been quarantined, but he hasn't yet been sent outside the camp, so he's still around his home. He's locked up at home, but he's still at home. So therefore, for him, we should follow the strict letter of the law and say, look, it seems to be the same one, and we're not going to make you tar, right? We're not going to make you tamei because you're a Muzgar. You haven't completed your 7 days yet, but we're not going to let you off the hook. It seems, however, that says Rabbi, we should go like Rabbi Meir by Muchlad, meaning he's already outside the camp, and it's Erev Yontif. For Yontif, it's not so nice. So therefore, by him, we'll play any trick we can to get him possibly back inside his home for Yontif. And that includes that if the first one has gone away, even though the second one, we're going to just look at the first one and say it's gone, and not at the second one and say it continued. Okay? So now, we're up to the last line. The carbon Ada takes out the last 2 lines, so we will take them as well. They're actually repetitive. And now we're up to Uma Beineo. What's the difference between the 2 approaches? So between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan. So it says Shmuel Amar Pricha Beineo. It's interesting machlokas. So it's not so simple as first glance. It's not just that Rabbi Akiva says it's a continuation of the first one, and Rabbanan hold it's not. It's separate from the first one. There's a little bit more to it. We're talking about a guy. What's the status of a guy, according to Shmuel, who became completely white? Right? And remember it says, Kulo Apach Lavon Ta'oru. Because completely right, he's okay, right? So Rabbi Akiva Omer, Hikad Mesa, it's the original Nega, but Poreach Min HaTameh, and it expanded from that original one which was Tameh, and he's Torah, right? He becomes Torah when it expands completely in it. Rabbanan Amrei Choreu. No, it's another nega. It's not the first one. B'poreach minator, and therefore he's really now. Oh no! I made a mistake. Not a major one, but ma beineu means where's a ramification where Rabbi Akiva is going to be l'kula and Rabbanan is going to be l'chumra. In other words, here Rabbi Akiva is l'chumra because it says it's the same old one, and Rabbanan are l'kula because Rabbanan say it's not the same old one. Rabbanan say it's a new one, right? What's not so we said, and therefore that we look just the old one, see it's God and not the new one. But where's there a manifestation of differences elsewhere? So the manifestation of differences elsewhere is where if now he becomes completely white, right? He becomes completely white in this stage. In other words, on, let's say, Yom, he becomes completely white. So according to Rabbi Akiva, what was he till now? He was tummy because his first tumor never came off and fell off. So suddenly he becomes completely white out of a state of tumor, he becomes tar. According to Rabbanan, though, what was he? Because Rabbanan put on blinders when it came to the second one. So what was he till now? Tar. So if he becomes completely white, he becomes tummy. because coming completely white out of the Tomei, out of stage of being Tahar, makes you Tomei. So here, there is a flip side, which Rabbanan would be make Machmir and Rabbi Kiva make. Let's see it inside again. He cut Mesa. The old one continued, never stopped. Now Vika, and he's still Tomei. Now Biporech Mina Tomei, if it spreads, it's like expanding from the Tomei, and he's Tor. For Rabbanan, I mean, no, Choriu, it's a new one, right? The old one is gone, right? So therefore, Biporech Mina Tor. So therefore, it's expanding actually from Torah, because technically, even though it's a legal fiction, they made him Torah for Yodim. So therefore, it expands from a Torah. He's Tamei. Okay, we'll start. It continues on a little bit the sugya, but we'll stop here for tonight.